I guess. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the RationalInvestor.co's weekend offering. This is our broiler chicken show. Bark, 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 bark. So, good morning, everybody. Probably a little less formal. Well, there's not that many people here. Do we really need a YouTube link? The only time I really think the YouTube link is necessary is if a little less formal. There you are. Well, there's not that many people here. Do we? I can put it in the lounge. Maybe you want to pop on over there, Jeremy. So, really, I'm a little concerned that people are. Well, who knows? We'll see what happens. Anyway, there's nobody over there now, and you see how small this audience is. So, I doubt we're gonna have too many people here today, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, hello everybody who's going to be watching this later on. I'll post this after we're done. Obviously, you know, we were watching with bated breath. Even if you just follow my actually, let's see if I can pull it up here. Even if you can just follow my my little Twitter feed, we've been watching and waiting and hoping and fingers crossing and all that kind of stuff on Bitcoin here recently. We were kind of hoping that, let's see, do I even have it here? Where the hell is it? I guess it was right here. We started off this conversation a few days ago. So June 6th, when's that? That's, you know, about the middle of last week. Where we were just, and I think on balance, this has been our message sort of out of the TRI community lately. We were right on a precipice. Really no way of knowing whether the market was going to accept higher or whether it was going to accept lower, but no doubt about it, we were coming into a battle zone here. And unfortunately, you know, and in a weird sort of way, I think actually a lot of this had to do directly with a side event that was going on in crypto. A lot of people were watching this EOS launch, and you know, people were feeling really enthusiastic about this story. We had higher time frame, bigger setups trying to come in. And as we were watching through sort of the 6th period, what I saw was a lot of people really excited about this EOS. You know, they had the launch actually, and we've heard Thomas talk lots about this in the daily briefs, their launch of their main net and all that kind of fun stuff. You know, the problem with this story, of course, originally was, you know, there's a difference in this game between buying sort of value and being a cheap ass and, you know, that sort of Nanny Nibbles kind of trading, and coming to a trend continuation story where, you know, valuations are already pretty steep anyway. So at the very best, all we could say here was, you know, there might be a trade set up here. You're playing basically the inertia of the market and the inertia of this event. And if it works, right on. You know, we had this is the higher time frame bot. If this thing had taken off, you can see we even talked repeatedly about this 25 level as sort of a line in the sand. And I think, frankly speaking, that's still the case. Heading into the event late last week, we did have a nice, cute little bull flag here try to form. And that set up this lower time frame setup that we were squawking about, or, you know, I was squawking about, Brian, as we were heading through this event. So there's the higher time frame bot level, and here was the lower time frame bot level right here. Just hopefully, you know, hoping that we get an AB equals CD, front running this level a little bit, anticipating that it would break out. And as you can see, here was the actual event right here. And heading into the event, you can see the cute little bottom the market put in. It was getting ready to ramp. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lows to work against here. And basically, this was the event. And it's interesting because somebody on Twitter even goes, well, Brian, isn't it buy the rumor, sell the news. So on the news event, that's actually the sell trigger. And I was like, well, it sure looks like that was the case this time. Because in essence, the event happened, and I even had this cute little Leanne setup here, breaking the three highs of the trend line and the structural signal there. But literally, that was it, and it was literally straight down since then. And the scuttlebutt I kind of heard was, yeah, they had the big vote, and everybody was all excited, and then we found out that they had another vote the next day, and then another vote the next day. So I'm not even quite sure what the status of this is, but the long and short of it here is this little setup. Had you taken it, you have to obey stops and get the fuck out. Cost you maybe about a $1.20 or so. So let's call it 7-8%, which really isn't that bad of a risk on a setup. But the long and short of it here is it got busted out overnight, and I basically reported. I didn't take the trade myself. I don't have an account on Phoenix, but I was reporting it, and the long and short of it is you found out. That's the one good thing about trading setups is you usually find out pretty damn quick whether you're right or wrong. And in this case, we found out just see you later. It just face planted right following that event. So, with this backdrop, and it was interesting watching Bitcoin through last night because this thing came back down, flirted with the original breakout level and just consolidated. And it was fascinating watching Bitcoin sort of oscillating around. Do I break? Do I break? Do I break? And then on this event, right, that's 1600 hours, basically the end of, yesterday afternoon, about 4 o'clock. And gee whiz, we go look at Bitcoin and we see that literally almost exactly that same time, there's 3 o'clock. You can see this OK coin just started to fall out of bed. So it was almost like the market gave the EOS people the opportunity to clean up their act and get things going. And things were looking very uppy. And we were even commenting in the daily brief that this price action through sort of the regular trading day, Monday to Friday kind of idea, was actually feeling pretty bullish. And then the market just lost it. So, as I said just a moment ago, I don't know whether this is really necessarily a Bitcoin dump story or it's, everybody had their bets placed on this EOS and it failed. And when it failed, oh boy, the whole damn market just rolled over. So that's sort of what I'm seeing right now. Now, the thing is this just a Bitcoin story? Bitcoin's getting hit? No, I don't think so. It's right across the board. So it wasn't even like, it was like, we're watching Bitcoin as it's sorting rollover. Like the whole damn space, you can see everybody broke violently there yesterday. And today is nothing more than, well, there's just no buyers on the other side of this event and everything is just coming off in earnest. The only trade that I've done of recent, and I just wanted to report, is I picked up some of this OMG off of this railroad tracks bottom. I have the alert set. If these lows are busted, I will walk away from the trade. It's just simple as that. And you can see that, we railroad track, but we M'd out here pretty nastily, and we're coming down here. So, same sort of thing, I suppose, as the EOS. This was a 1085. This is a 940. So that's like a buck. We'll call it like $1.40 or so. So a little bit more than 10% punch in the nose. And of course, I never risked more than, I think this was less than 1% of our cash balance. So we're going to take about like a 0.5%. 0.5% hit. And it's just a trader's life. Now, at the same time, too, I'm not going to sell with this sitting here. It's ugly. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not pretty. But, I trade setups, and my setup says that I have to risk to a break of these lows. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I don't know what's going to happen, but, basically in the trade, see how it goes. And I suppose one could argue, we had cute little setups that we were painting. I don't know whether they've actually been broken yet or not. There was one that, here it is. We had this little mini El Tangonator that was just working away here. You love when Google just arbitrarily just says, no, yeah, we don't like you. Get out of here. Hey, there we are. We back. Can you see me? As I said just a moment ago, this particular setup, had you taken this railroad tracks, you got to live with the results. And here we are coming down to test the lows. It hasn't been broken yet. I'm not going to say I'm feeling overly optimistic about this. Okay. No video? I am screen sharing. You don't see the screen share there? I go present to everyone. Good now. All right. Well, there we go. Okay. So as I said just a moment ago, I guess we have now officially picked up the moniker that that meow is the code word. I heard that and I was like, where's Shane? I don't see Shane around here. All right. Well, I hope you guys are seeing me now. Anyway, the point here is we were talking through the week about how this, but El Tangonator, fractal, really stupid, bullish momentum divergence in MACD. It fired on this fractal reversal here, but you can see it's under pressure. But just as I said with the OMG, it's same sort of logic here. And if anything, this is exactly where a lot of new traders trip up, is they'll panic and they'll walk away. And then you might find tomorrow, and you never know in this crazy game, guys. You just don't know. But maybe tomorrow this thing just parks itself right down here at the bottom of the range. And it was interesting. I actually saw a few guys on Twitter and stuff were saying that they were buying today, which I thought was really interesting. But you never know. We might just put in a nice little inside bar, something like that, and this thing ends up working. You just don't know in this game. So this is a bit of a tough spot right now for those people that did take these potential reversals off of the lows here. Right now you're underwater, but you're basically just sitting there going, okay, well, do I have to exit? Or do I just sit and do nothing? So it's very tough location. And actually what's really interesting, and I saw one of our veterans this morning, he was posting on the site, and it's a bit of a stretch right now because usually when we come into levels, what we'd really like to see is our momentum indicators are confirming that these are this is what, and it's interesting because this is 55.1, so it's not necessarily Gardley. Gardley really wants to be 61.8. That's how sort of people know it is a Gardley, is that this move here is 61.8. So we can't even really use the Gardley reference. What we probably should be doing is we have to come on here. We have to say, okay, where is 50? Okay, so this could be a crab, 38.2 all the way up to 61.8. It could be a bat, 38.2 to 50. So it's either one of these two. So bat is 88.6 and crab is 1.618. If that's the case, then, like I said, Gartley's probably off the table, but we could definitely think bat, 88.6. So that's right there. Let's keep an eye on that level. And then, like we said, this could be a crab, and crab is, should go there. Let's go bat. That would be the 8.6. And then crab, and this is what I'm thinking we're probably more than likely doing here, would be 1618. That's down to here. something like that. So that's probably what we're looking at right now. So probably if we're thinking about trade location, these are probably the two levels I would want to be keeping an eye on. I don't have a lot of confidence that this is a pivot because look at momentum, right? It's good to see that Williams percentage R. Remember, I made this mistake last week. This is not a relative strength index. This is a Williams percentage R. It's good to see that he's actually come out of the overbought zone. It's bad to see that he's come back below 50, but it is encouraging to see that he's actually getting oversold. So, hopefully we're closer to a bottom than a top. Maybe what we see, if we're really lucky, is some sort of, FU overnight, and then the big boys come back tomorrow morning. And here's the thing, right, is that Chicago actually went out, right? Chicago went out last Friday there. So, is it realistic for us to think that the Chicago boys are going to let, this, what is that, about $600 as it is right now, slip through their fingers? And my hunch is no. So I don't know how this is going to play out Monday, Tuesday, but I really wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of counter trend rally back into resistance. And it might just be back to testing the original breakdown level. If I'm not mistaken, one of our veterans really likes to work offers right at the candle body close level. And notice that too, that's also against a trend line. And I'm kind of thinking that the Chicago boys, at the very least, I don't think they're going to allow Bitcoin to crap out here with this big old air pocket that they didn't participate in. So I do think there is going to be some sort of counter trend rally here to let them get short. You can see where the 9 EMA is, right? It's going to be setting up off of that level as well. That's going to be short-term resistance. So, until we actually break these lows, the jury's still out. My hunch is that, like I said, that they're not going to let this thing get away from them too far. But, that's just Brian's opinion. Who knows what the hell's going to happen. I guess the thing that kind of bummed me out this, like I said, was if we actually look at things like Phoenix, and I had a, think... No, I guess that. Well, if we look at MEX, it's really obvious. Beautiful AB equals CDs. And look how the 25 level just set up so perfectly right off of those candle body closes. Almost evil how textbook this is. And the problem is that I'm running my trading plan off of OKCoin, just day trading, or I guess swing trading Bitcoin. And I don't know what it is. That's a good Western exchange proxy. If I go over to Japan, and I think OKCoin seems to be following Japan a lot closer. You notice that Japan, they went to new highs here. So, botters, you got to wait for some sort of structure to develop here. So, I put on the same bot levels and you can see it tripped up through there. But notice, just didn't get anything to work with here. And, same sort of thing, like I said, I think OKCoin is actually operating off the same sort of Japanese kind of levels. Because I look at my OKCoin chart, and of course, like I said, I had the platform up. In fact, I even got the order working. I was so excited last night. I totally got the order working. I was like, and then I was working off of this MEX chart, and I even had the order working. I was like, okay, 74.14, all right, enter the order, and I started, sprinkling in a bunch of orders, 5% of my account, blah 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 blah, typical bot. And then I go, oh shit, wait a minute, this is MEX, right? Okay, well let's go over to OKCoin. Let's see, does it set up? And there was this, and it's like, oh, fuck me. Okay, coin got me again. Oh God, these guys drive me nuts. So this has happened to me a few times, and I don't quite understand. You can see OK coin went to new highs to like that Japanese market, but this is supposed to be priced in U.S. dollars. The Western markets didn't. They set up the M's just beautifully, but here I got completely frozen out. I couldn't do anything through here. Very, very frustrating. But, guess what, guys? That's a trader's life. Get used to it. I think, though, going forward, I'm going to, build into my trading plan that if I see the setups on MEX, I'm just going to take them off MEX. And I'll just sort of, trade one account versus the other, but just trade these setups because I was just last time with the bot, we didn't hit the 33 level, and I just sort of forced the trade, and I was just riddled with anxiety. So again, am I going to have to try and force this trade? Am I going to riddle myself with anxiety because I'm not following the model? And I think at the very least, what I have to be for you guys, in my opinion, is just a demonstrator of good behavior. So, on acknowledgement, I really didn't feel comfortable about being in this previous bot that was sort of set up off of wrong levels. We didn't have the 33% retracement yet. And people even reminded me, said, well, Brian, didn't we not have a blah, 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 right? And I was like, yeah, you're right. So, okay, let's just get out of there. So here, at the very least, what I have to do if I'm thinking about joining this is I'd really like to see some sort of counter trend rally back into resistance. And it's a pain in the butt because I could very easily see this thing just cascade and work its way lower. And you can see where the targets are now. It's interesting how we had this bot up here, boom, 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 boom. And again, just not setting up for me very well. And now this bot, boom, 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 boom. Everybody seems to be wanting this sort of, 6,300 area. There seems to be some sort of magnetic pull there. And the interesting thing, of course, is that this is taking into the, you liquidate me, I liquidate myself talk. Price action. And then also, too, I had made reference to this purple line. Remember, we said, well, we should probably keep an eye on this going forward. You can see how both of these sort of bearish patterns are going to bring us into that level. And if we go and look, I think I translated this to the dailies. Yeah, there it is there. So really all this is doing is these little bearish setups, it's just going to bring price up against all of these key lows, right? And so those current bearish bots and stuff, what they're probably suggesting is and then we went after the stops. Has anybody ever heard me say that before? So that's sort of what I'm thinking here right now. It kind of sucks because I think on balance we had it pretty taped. We see basically the consolidation. The moving averages never did roll over bullish, so our cautionary tone, and maybe just confirm for me, guys, have I been cautionary about sort of what we're going to do on Bitcoin of late? I hope I have been. I hope that was the message. Waiting for a resolution, waiting for resolution. And you can even see here on the 9th, still waiting for resolution. And then, when this thing broke, I just went, oh, fudge. So, just in very simplest terms, whoever really won this battle was probably going to dictate trade here going forward for the next little while. Now, if we're really lucky, right, we're going to harmonic down here against these lows, but I'm not keeping my fingers crossed. If anything, this is, again, we're back to, I'm from Missouri. You got to show me. And somebody even in the lounge earlier today said that, Bitcoin did have a window where if it was bullish and it was going to rally, it had the green light. And now, unfortunately, that window is closing. and we might be heading sort of back into another FUD fest. So be prepared, people. I suppose one could argue, this is a great testament to V bottoms need to be tested. You notice that across almost all of these, yes, they were railroad tracks, but in essence, we are now getting that V bottoms need to be tested, and we will see whether these are the actual lows. And the jury is out. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, guys. This is the jury is not only out, but they're also, when they come back in, they're kind of, they're not making eye contact with the defendant. That's usually not a good sign. FYI, I did post the invite to Julian, and he will pop on here when he has a moment and give us his rundown. But my hunch is it's probably not going to be any more optimistic than Brian's. So just we'll keep an eye out for Julian here, and it'll be interesting just to get his take on RSI models. Hey, there he is, right on. Oh, good timing. So we'll let him get settled in, and as soon as you're sort of ready to go, Julian, maybe give us the thumbs up, and we'll listen to what you have to say. TRI Dad, yeah. So actually, this will be a really good study of our model here this week too. So this is what I was sort of talking about earlier. You can see where Chicago. Oh, come on, you. Are you not going to move? All right. You can see where they took Chicago out on Friday. So the question is, and you see repeatedly, take it out, open it up, check. Take it out, open it up, check. Take it out, are they going to let this huge window pass? I don't think so. Considering my talk sort of about how OKCoin didn't really set up well for me, I am, and actually it's interesting because we just had that RSI study there on the screen there, right? Wow, that was a train wreck. You can see the Emmys on RSI models. I'm sure Julian is not going to give us an overly enthusiastic report here. So there's nasty M. And actually, you know what this is a really good example of, guys, is you would remember last week I had erroneously used the Williams percentage R as sort of our 50 line bull bear. And I'd said, hey, look, we're above 50. Things are rosy. Well, you can clearly see here RSI put in one hell of a fight at the 50 level and lost its lunch. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. So, when Julian is ready, he'll give us a big old dose of RSI. Get ready for that. And at the very least, remember, guys, we went through this whole process through 2013, 2014, and people like Jeremy and Thomas and stuff started working with us then. And of course, you see how they're doing. I think Jeremy's still feeling pretty wealthy, but I can't comment. I think Thomas is doing fairly well in his activities. Obviously ask them directly if you want an answer from them on that. But at the very least, just learn from this, guys. Take notes. That's James. James is Lambo the Lamb. But what's interesting is James and Jeremy are actually buds. We used to call them the three horsemen. There was another gentleman who was on the site. Unfortunately, he sort of showed his true colors, and he lost his horseman status. Let's leave it at that. But Jeremy and James, they worked together very closely for quite a long time period. So actually, it shouldn't surprise us. The two of them think very similarly, and a lot of the charts and stuff that you see James, and actually I think even Julian on his charts, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Thomas as well, they all use Jeremy's candle color script. I have never really bought into that, but I'm just an old stick in the mud, so don't listen to more Brian. But some of them have been really, really good information. So if you are interested in that, befriend Jeremy. That's a very popular script on the site, and that's Jeremy's baby. All right. So what can we tell you? Markets, it had a big bullish axis test, and the axis test failed. On sites like MEX, beautiful bot setups, but I'm not trading on MEX. I'm on OKCoin, and I got nothing to work with. Fuck me. So I don't know how this is going to play out. You can clearly see on the lower time frames that the things like relative strength index are getting oversold. So I don't know whether it's really a good idea to be chasing this too aggressively on the downside. What I have to do now, and it sucks, but this is just Brian, is I have to wait for the bounce, hope that the Chicago boys insist that they have to get in on this short trade on that bounce, probably back up into the 7,500 area. There is the bot short levels on OKCoin, and you notice 38.2 right now, and this is assuming these lows hold. We don't know if they're going to hold or not. But right now that's sitting at 74.56. In fact, boom, they just lost the lows. So, we might be A, B, C, D'ing out here, and we're ready for another dump. And I suppose you could argue that we're coming up into move stop to scratch levels on the MEX setup, for example. So all those guys are sitting there going, come on, baby. Come on, baby. You're almost there. You're almost there. Once they hit this level, they're laughing. So there's your market. And it looks like we are going to go after these lows right now. Now, like we said earlier, are you ready to go, Julian, or do you still need a few more minutes?
I need a couple minutes.
Was that a yes or a no? I don't know what that was.
I need a couple minutes, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. So, that's the state of crypto right now. As we look at our alt indexes, you can see M's working here. That ain't good. And of course, good old Bitcoin. You can see the big old M here. That ain't good. Bots, as I said, and even off OKCoin, and even the Japanese market didn't set up well, but you can see the levels. And actually, it's interesting on this Japanese market. Look what happens when I do this bot. Whoops. Boom, 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 boom. And it's interesting how the target on the bot is actually the original trend line off of the top. And we often see this happen, right? This is a great little piece of market knowledge that you can use going forward, right? What did I learn today, right? And even if we just let's just make that a trend line, right? If you draw your market structure and it's extremely steep, what often happens, and I suppose you could argue it's the same thing here, you can see how the market tried to accept back above the trend line. And then when it sort of exhausts itself, it hits the reset button and says, okay, well, where did I find support before? And gee whiz, that's right off of this trend line. So you can see how the market's moved away from the trend line again. And if we fail, then where is support? Well, support is along this trend line. And you can see how the bot level, in fact, if we dump here, we're probably going to go beyond bot targets. And that often happens too, because, the professionals, they'll be taking profits into this event, right? And then on this sort of subsequent dump, this, of course, is where all the divergences and start forming. And the professionals, they're all taking profits. They've hopped off to the sidelines, and that's often where you get your bottom, and the market reverses back up. So it's just an interesting sort of piece how bot levels are lining up with this trend line here over on Flyer. All right. Geez, what a happy-go-lucky report here for everybody, today? Boo, hiss, boo. What else? I guess I haven't been doing a lot of buying. And as I said, you can see the wisdom in move stop to scratch on these kind of setups, you can see the wisdom of you better obey that stop and get the hell out of there, or this could turn really ugly. Now, you know, on these kind of names, we could even argue that there's bear AB equals CDs working now. My hunch is this thing's probably going to have to be coming down into here. Yeah, well, actually, we're probably getting close to some sort of capitulation. But an excellent testament that, you know, when your setup is broken, you better walk away because there could be quite a bit more disaster here. Got a headache. I was interested to see that the pot coins were trying to turn the corner here. And it's interesting because POT actually put in a bit of a floor here so it could absorb this down day. You can see, though, that, you know, things like THC, it's trying to turn, but not quite. Right? You can see the battle going on here. Sure is trying to turn, but hasn't quite. And it's interesting, this dope actually does, if I'm not mistaken, it does have a double bottom working here. So dope has got a double bottom working, and pot has got a double bottom working here. So that's encouraging. At least it's nice to see some sort of signs of bottomy action. Let's see. I suppose on a side note, maybe we'll leave crypto for a few minutes. I don't see any big hurry. And like I said, we've painted some downside targets, so you guys should all have a pretty good idea where Brian's thinking this thing's going to go. The tether one here, probably a really good proxy, 6201 as the bot target there. That's probably a pretty good level to be thinking about. And the move stop to scratch levels coming up on a test of these old lows. Interesting too, though, you know, before we leave this, how we are coming up to trendline support here. So as we sort of said before, you know, let's see whether these trendline support lines can hold. But, you know, those who took the bot last night, you're actually rooting for a nice tag here of just below 7,000, 69.88. And that would make sense too, you know, 7,000, big fat round number. So, you know, I could very easily see some support in the short term come in here. So let's hope that happens. And then any kind of dead cat bounce back up into these levels, we can take a look at whether we really want to join the short side. Problem with that, though, is if we do hit the move stop to scratch level and we do bounce back to scratch, then that means that the bot itself is on pause. So never a dull moment in a trader's life, I suppose. But anyway, that's sort of the current state of Bitcoin from my eyes. Okay, so a couple other things. Well, Julian, what do you think? Are you ready to go? Can you please share the GAN? Yeah, actually, we didn't look at that today, did we? There we go. So good old GAN, you can see the 8-to-1 level proved as a pretty powerful level here. You can see, and we talk about this repeatedly, don't make any big decisions through speed bumps. This is going to be extremely choppy. And also, too, remember that OKCoin has their new contract listing on Friday. So we may see a big-ass dump here and into that contract listing. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. And also, too, you know, they probably want to try and clean up the mess from this event, right? And I think probably, you know, before they do the new contract listing, they're going to want to go and address this and clean up all this mess. So I think that's basically what's happening here. So, yeah, you're right. GAN, this looks horrible. And what's worse, too, is now we have an M working off of the 8-to-1 level. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. Okay, so Julian says my audio is a mess. Can anybody else hear me? I hear you fine. Yeah, it might be that awesome computer you're running there, Julian. That's not me. Oh, that's a different Julian. So many Julians.
Okay,
All
I'm
right.
ready to go. Brian, I'm ready to go if you want my spiel.
Okay. Well, so I've given you my sort of two thoughts on Bitcoin. Obviously, it's not rah rah bull. All right. Let's hear from Julian. What's on your mind? And we see you staring up at something. Not quite
Hold
sure
on,
what
let
you're
me
staring
share my screen.
at. And your microphone just went nuclear. So you're going to have to be cognizant of that. Was there like a way you could put like the headphones on or something like that where your microphone doesn't go nuts?
No, it's only in this Google Hangout. It's nowhere else. I've tested it multiple times in other programs, and I never have this issue.
Okay, well, it's back, and I'll just bark if I see
Let me know.
if it goes nuclear again, and we just have to give Julian a minute to get his head on straight, and then back to the story. Bark or meow? Meow's for Brian. Bark is for Julian.
Okay. So yeah, it doesn't. The picture on Bitcoin, from my perspective, has not looked good for a while. So I mean, I think every single show I've been on, I've done a bearish forecast.
Yeah.
I started to get a little more excited around this area, and I did have this trend line building up where we could have a bullish breakout. If I go to the daily, oh, that is not the daily at all. If I go to the daily, so we had this downtrend here, and then we had this uptrend, but that just broke last night, at least last night East Coast time, and that's where I actually bought around 7,400. I got out of US dollars and I went back into Bitcoin. And now we broke down here and I sold at around 7,200. So now I'm out again of like my long-term Bitcoin holding stake. This is actually a very serious breakdown in my opinion. I really don't like what happened here. If you're a Bitcoin bull like Brian, and you have everything's kind of bull, this is very bad. It completely broke down. Bitcoin trading action on top of that has been very difficult the past month, I'd say. I mean, you get these probably since the 24th, you've had these up and down, ridiculous, odd moves that I never really saw before. I haven't seen before in Bitcoin. I don't really know what's going on with the market, but I can tell you for sure that what just happened here, this breakdown is a major move. I will be surprised if we stop here. I'll be very surprised. We could. There's that potential. I mean, if you want to take the risk, you could buy right here, risk against this low. Now that I'm looking at it, it's not a bad trade. I personally don't like it because if you look at the daily, for me to be bullish on the daily, I really needed to see a move above the 50% level here. And oh, I don't know why I'm on BitMEX. Coinbase is so much better. Sorry. Okay, so I need to see. Let me clean this up too. Again, this is kind of on the fly. I haven't really been trading Bitcoin much lately or doing anything because it's just been sitting in a range. So I really haven't done much. I was just waiting to see how this played out. And I needed to see Bitcoin get above this blue line to be a real bull, like really bullish. As long as it's below this blue line, I'm leaning bearish. I'm going to lean bearish. I have been since I started coming on this show. I think it's been bear. That's really all I have to say. This breakdown sucks if you're a bull. We got to see what happens here. I don't know what's going to happen next, but if I had to guess, it's going to be maybe a little messing around here, something like this, maybe a little bit like that. And then we just go down again. And maybe we go down to 6,500 right here. And we pause. And then I'm not sure what happens next. We'll have to see what the charts say. So that's about it on Bitcoin from me.
You want to do
I
your altcoin index RSI analysis? I always love those.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do that next. Let me just move this up. So same kind of thing. I know I pulled this up. I know people were getting excited with the Turtle BC because it was at 4% and they were thinking about buying. And I remember this being shown and saying, be cautious because this doesn't always signal a bottom. It doesn't. It's just saying it's oversold. That's all it is an oversold and overbought indicator. It doesn't tell you when there's a real top or bottom. So I look at it as a reference, but I don't use it. I think using the RSI is a much better indicator because it gives you a clearer picture of tops and bottoms. So for anyone that isn't familiar with the screen or past shows, this is the altcoin market. It's the top 10 coins, just graphed as a culmination together, shown as a line graph. And this is the actual market cap of those top 10 coins, or the price, not the market cap, the price. And as you can see, if we go to 5, where's 524?
Hey, is that Benjamin's script?
Yeah, it's Benjamin's script.
Yeah, so if anybody's on the site, usually Benjamin's around, but if you need that script or code, just ask and we can give it to you.
So 4.3% was the bottom on 527 for Turtle BC. If you were lucky enough to just say, okay, below 5, I'm going to buy, or around 5. Where was that? Oh, wow. Okay. So that was about right here. So then if you bought there, you're still doing okay. But, and that does align with my W here, you know, right here. If you bought the second leg of the W and you wrote it up, the problem is that here we just got a serious breakdown, just like on Bitcoin. I did not want to see this line crossed. It has been. But now you've got something like this going on too. And I'm not going to get bullish until I see this line crossed. And even on the daily, it looks even worse. It's, again, I need to see this above the 50% right here, around 50%. And it did briefly go above it. And I got pretty excited. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But it quickly turned back down. And it yet again looks pretty bad. So I personally haven't bought any altcoins still. I'm still waiting. I haven't done any buying since the fall. I've just been sitting here waiting to see if this bull's going to come back. A lot of my money's in USDT. It's just been sitting there. Anything that's been in crypto, I admit I've lost a decent amount, and I wish I took more out. I took about 75% out, and I left about 25% in crypto. But I wish I took 90% out. Because
hindsight's always 2020, eh?
Yeah, but I'm still overall proud of myself because I think I took most of it out, and you know, a lot of people thought
fantastic.
A lot of people thought the bull would come back sooner and we'd get rallies, and you don't know what's going to happen in this space. That's my thing that I always say is, you know, Brian, I know you talk about seasonality a lot, and a lot of times that is true. The seasonality is true. The problem I have with that is seasonality. When you look at seasonality, you want to look at past history. And if there's only 2 or 3 years in the past, that's not a lot of data. Any scientific study would throw that out. You want to have 10 to 100 years of data to really say, okay, this is a consistent thing we can kind of depend on. And not to, you know, be a bearer of bad news, but I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if you're going to get a seasonal rally here. This could be a fake out, and then maybe you do get a seasonal rally, but I don't think we have enough history to say, oh, it's going to happen every single year when crypto's only been around for 3 or 4 years. So that's my 2 cents. That's how I feel. I'm not really too bullish on this market just yet. The charts aren't looking good, in my opinion. There's really nothing for me to get excited about, unfortunately. That's about it. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, Mr. Happy Happy.
Well, I mean, I'm just realistic. That's
Right.
all.
I think probably the message of the day, and it's basically been the same message for like the past 3 or 4 months. Probably, what is it? It's already June. Jeez, that's probably 5 months. Is just got to cool your jets, right? And just take it
Well,
slowly and just wait.
I don't know about cooling jets. If you want to hunt shorts on margin, you can. I don't see anything wrong with
Absolutely,
hunting
sure.
shorts.
Yeah.
And I also don't see, there's nothing wrong with if, maybe back here at 9,000 you sold, or if you're in mostly USDT, be proud of yourself for getting into USDT and not just holding Bitcoin through this downtrend.
Do you have
If you are
any?
still holding, I
Was there
would,
a short setup there that fired for you?
yeah, but I was sleeping.
Yeah, that's good old Bitcoin. Bitcoin
Uh,
loves to do that while we're asleep.
Yeah, well, that's why you have to set them ahead of time. So that's why I always say, set them against, I always set my sells against the highs and I buy against the lows. So if I had shorted, I would have had a short if I wanted to. I wasn't feeling like trading. I saw this setup. I just didn't feel like it. You could have shorted here with a stop here. That would have been a decent trade you could have taken profits here for a 2-to-1, or you could have went down to here for a 4.5-to-1. And then, honestly, I would think about taking longs here. If you're trading on margin, this is a great trade to try to take. Just set your buy. You could set your buy right here, and you could even set one at the lows right here, and set your stop right below it. Maybe at like 7,000. Set your stop and then do a long up to where these previous lows were, and you've got a 3-to-1 risk reward. I mean, that's a nice trade. I would take that trade if I'm trading on the lower time frames. I bet if I look at I haven't even looked at the lower time frames, but well, this is pretty bad breakdown. But we have a huge amount of volume that came in, which means someone's supporting this level. There is someone supporting it. From a short-term trade perspective, this is not a bad trade. And now that I'm looking at it, I actually might go even take the trade myself, because of the volume I'm seeing here. I mean, this is when you see this kind of volume come in, and this doesn't work for tops. This does not work for tops. It only works for bottoms. When you see this kind of bottom or volume come in, that means that somebody's supporting the market. Somebody's buying. If you see a drop and you don't see much volume, that's when you get worried, because that means nobody's buying, nobody's supporting it. I mean, if you see all these drops, you see volume spike. Drop here, volume spikes, volume spikes. But look at these volume spikes in comparison to the previous ones. The only one that was similar to this in the past was back here on 529. And that was one of the biggest drops. So that tells you that this could be a short-term bottom. And again, that's emphasis on short-term. That means like maybe a day, maybe a day and a half. Long-term, I'm still very bearish. If you are thinking about trading Bitcoin long-term, I would not be buying here at all. If you're margin trading, you can buy here and take a trade.
Okay.
Let me see.
I think that's good information. I like the idea of them bouncing the market back so that the New York boys, the Chicago boys, can get short from up top. So while I'm not day trading and I haven't built a day trading plan for this, I can understand those hunting longs down in here to try and anticipate that bounce back. I think it makes sense. Exactly where it is here, I think jury's still out. It's actually interesting, on OKCoin, for example, this recent dump has now hit the move stop to scratch level on these bot levels, and notice that RSI on my fast RSI is not making new lows. So we can see the divergence here starting to build. And in essence, now that this level has been hit, we could very easily see the market rally right back to this trend line. that is 50% of that range. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't you used to like to hunt that sort of 50% bounce after the RSI fails to strap on a short? I remember you used to like to work with that 50% level.
No, I don't really like using fibs. I don't actually think they work that well. So I just look at the candlestick price action and I look at the lows and the highs.
The Keltner channel that you have on there, that
No, not the Keltner channel. I use the Keltner channel sometimes, but the easiest thing to use is just the lows of the previous. So on your chart there, if you look to the left, that previous low, no, over in the middle there at the point your 7,400 level, right there. That's where I would look to sell.
okay, that makes sense. Nice.
I look at those levels. I personally just don't like using fibs. Maybe it's because I never could figure out how to draw them the exactly the correct way, or it's because they always seem to just line up with the bottoms and the tops anyway. So it's like, well, what's the point of these when I can just look at the candlestick price action?
Mm-hmm.
That's just me. Again, everybody has their own style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, that's an excellent point to make. So hopefully everybody watched Julian's presentation. You can definitely see his stamp, Julian's stamp on his charts and his style. We're really excited because Julian's actually putting together a module to try and teach you all his methodology, which I can't wait to see. I'll also subscribe to that course. So, but it's definitely has Julian's stamp, his personal flair. I love that about him because I've said this repeatedly to you guys. There is a million different ways to skin this cat. It's not really a question of what's right or wrong. It's just what actually works for you as an individual. So thank you very much for that contribution, Julian. I appreciate it. Okay, just an FYI, a couple things about the site, which unfortunately I'm gonna, a couple negatives, I suppose. The first is Sjord is planning on making the jump to the new site, and that means that for about a week or so, he's actually going to take down this old dashboards page. And start making the formal transition to the new site. So some of the site's pages that we have up and running, like the dashboard, for example, are going to disappear for about a week or so as he goes through that. And I've asked Sjord to just give us sort of a day-by-day, step-by-step update and ETA, so we have a pretty clear idea of when that's going to be coming back. So if you do see that, don't be shocked. A personal note, just for the community, I was planning on going over to Europe this summer and visit you guys and all the London people. I'd put together a group hangout for meetup for the end of July. Because of personal issues with regard to my current apartment. I'm going to have to move here shortly, so I don't know whether I can do that European trip this summer, which kind of sucks, but life gets in the way sometimes. So all the Europeans, just I apologize in advance. I'm going to try and make the trip, but if I can't find a place by the end of July, then I have to spend July hunting for a new place. So just be cognizant of that, and maybe if I'm lucky, I can just postpone it a month and I'll visit you guys in August. We could go through and talk a little bit about your ideas, but don't be shocked, guys, if I say, oh geez, cool your jets, cool your jets, cool your jets. I did see some people asked a little bit about things like the Euro and GE and some stocks and stuff. So we can talk a little bit about that part of the market as well. As we said, and it just looks like Bitcoin just lost 7,000 level here. So, everybody knows what Brian's expectation out of Bitcoin is here in the short term. It's actually interesting. I don't know if there's been any actual specific news that has driven this. I think this is more just as I had said to begin with, Christian, You just asking whether there's any news driving this. I think honestly, this was just a tight consolidation of a trading range. We had a driver. Oh boy, you can see these guys are getting bitch slapped now. And this story just sort of fell apart. It's interesting. I think Andrew in the lounge was just like, this thing's got train wreck written all over it. So sadly, you know, it looks to me like that story is basically unwinding. No video. So can you see my screen, Andrew? Fixed? Okay, good. You know, until this dust settles, I think these are basically your drivers right now. And as I'd said earlier, and kind of Julian had told you a moment ago, it's across the board, right? I've got alerts. I'll be blowing this thing out if these lows break on OMG. But it's across the board. Oh my God, Bitcoin Gold is losing those lows. Damn. Zcash is interesting. Somebody had mentioned on Polo, they were dumping Dash pretty hard there yesterday. So maybe this thing has to play catch up with Polo. You know, some of these other Tether proxies, you can see they're all coming off here. So I don't necessarily think it's specifically news driven. I think it's just more across the board. We had gone through a consolidation period. There just isn't really any fundamental driver now. And so the easiest thing to do is just liquidate. And of course, we have this silly OKCoin forwards contract expiry coming up on next Friday, and there is always a shitload of crap around these expiries. So the irony of it all is I think that this, unfortunately, it sucks. Don't get me wrong, but this is actually pretty normal for these OKCoin expiries. Like there's always one at the end of December, right around Christmas, and for 4 years I have been like literally watching. You know, I had crappy Christmases because OKCoin, they decide to dump Bitcoin price into Christmas. I mean, it happens every single year. With regard to Julian's commentary on seasonality, I actually do typically see that there is a pause. Keep in mind, we're still not even technically into summer. We're still in spring, right? Summer doesn't officially start until next week. I feel very comfortable that there will be a seasonal rally, and really all we're doing is just fucking with all these lows here. It's not really anything out of the ordinary going on here. It's just normal price action. The problem is that we had to unwind this absolutely insane bull. And I would also agree with Julian on seasonality in that, you know, I remember through the dot-com peak, same sort of thing. Where, you know, for a year or two around that event, a lot of the seasonalities went out the window. Could you have a scenario where seasonality is basically put on pause? We just don't have a bull market this summer in altcoins? Well, you know, if Bitcoin's in the shitter, that's definitely a possibility. And if anything, you have to build your plan with expectations of that. It's just sort of, you know, the way the market is. All right, so they're really going for it here now on OKCoin. Coming up to move stop to trailing levels now on this short. And I suppose if we look at the MEX contracts and stuff, they're probably, yep, you can see MEX is coming in. This it pissed me off when I saw this morning because it was just so pretty. And I completely missed the trade. It pissed me off. So, you know, as Julian pointed out a moment ago, I mean, we can be hunting short setups on these things. That certainly isn't out of the question. All right. So, you know, that's sort of my commentary on the broader market. It's interesting, you know, today, not really the best day. Few ideas, you know, in Stockland that we're kicking around. You know, we had been talking recently about first 2 week study, level 2 program, no, level 3 program. They just recently went through their sector rotation models. And I do find it interesting that if we are still in that sort of expansionary phase of the market, then we should see on the sector rotation. Let's go over here, and we'll go here. And we will go, what was it? The beginning of this quarter was April 1st. All right, so sector rotation model. You can see tech and cyclicals getting some money flow. Energy still getting a lot of money flow. It's interesting that materials are coming back here a little bit. You can clearly see, you know, consumer staples, utilities, financials definitely on the outs. It's interesting how industrials here are underperforming. So really the question for me is, where are we in this cycle? Are we in the part of the cycle where tech and cyclicals outperform, or are we in the cycle where materials and energies outperform? If we're in the tech cyclicals part, then it means that we're just coming out of a trough, and the market's, the economy is going to ramp up here. If, however, we're at the period where the materials and energies outperform, then that means the economy is already doing pretty well, and we actually should be looking for a market top relatively soon. So with that said, you know, any way you shake it, you know, if we start seeing tech start to top out here, I think actually there might be short scenarios building. And we were looking, you know, Christian last week had pointed out Google, really interesting chart, just basically on the dailies, and we were watching the options expiration. There was obviously a lot of funny business around the 125 option there. Did that expire in the money? You know, were they forced exercised? Probably, but I did notice that they took it well above 125 through the session on Friday, so they may have actually even just covered that position ahead of time. The point that I would just make is the next big options expiry, and it's a June contract, is coming up here next week. And the heaviest open interest is down here in this sort of 1050, 1060 area. So interesting, you know, Christian was hunting short setups, paper trading, practicing. I do like the idea, very much like, you know, Julian was telling you earlier, if you want to buy against lows, sell against highs, well, you know, basically the market rallying up against these highs, this is sort of your risk window if you did short up top here. And, you know, options expiry, buying against lows, etc. You can see, you know, big old hole in the charts here that technically still could be filled in, and even some cheeky little gaps. There's a cheeky little gap right there. So there is lots of downside to go here. So we'll be keeping an eye on these tech names. But I also noticed too, like, have any of you guys ever heard of this company, Interactive Corp? You probably have. You just don't even realize it. But they own like the online dating sites, like Match.com. That's a pretty popular one. As well as like Home Advisor and a whole bunch of sort of online businesses. And keep in mind, this is a weekly price chart, and look at the beautiful W that it actually painted. And you can see the counter trend rallies just coming right into those old highs. So, you know, if we are further along this cycle and we're up in this area, then shorting and building short positions in tech and stuff like that isn't such a bad idea at all, because of course this is market top and get ready. So for those people that are interested in the stock market, I'm very interested in these kind of names. And it's interesting too, on sort of a very different topic, because somebody was mentioning in the lounge this morning, we were looking at the Brazilian real. And it's interesting because I'm interested in coffee prices too. Coffee looks very interesting. It's coming into sort of seasonally acceptable window. And we notice this Brazilian real, they basically, keep in mind, this is a weekly price chart. Look at the daily price action down here, right into a buying window. And look how insane the volatility is. Just absolutely crazy. So, you know, maybe you work your bid at the gap right here if you're interested in Brazilian reals. I don't know. That's a tough one unto itself. I actually pulled up like an ETF, but the ETF doesn't look anything at all like this. So I'm a little disappointed in that. I don't think I can actually take a position on this trade. but definitely, something to keep our eyes on. And, like the guys, Raf and the boys watching the coffee market, my hunch is that this Brazilian real is trying to turn with the anticipation of a bottom coming in on coffee prices, because a lot of their economy is based on that, and a lot of their economy is also based on soybeans. Is it ZS now, I think, for soybeans? I don't know. Soybeans, they don't look overly compelling here, kind of middle of the road. But that coffee chart sure looks interesting. And if I understand correctly, I think there's political rumblings going on in Brazil. So guys like RAF and stuff like that, they're watching the coffee call options very closely if we can dip down below value here. But I was really interested in that Brazilian real. So I'm just going to keep an eye on this and see if there's different ways that I can participate in this. As I said, the ETF just looks like a train wreck. But I'm going to be looking at options and stuff like that, see if I can find an idea. Because gee whiz, I mean, that to me looks like that's got opportunity written all over it. So there's that. Now, on the flip side, if coffee prices are bottoming, and of course we're talking about stock market looking really heavy, I thought this was really interesting. This is Starbucks. Obviously, big users of coffee. Oh, hello. Am I still connected? That was kind of weird what happened there. Yeah, well, they are, and that's probably why their currency just looks like shit. If anything, buying a call option on that, maybe like 2020, I think, or 2000, maybe mid 2019. I don't know whether 6 months is enough, but 2020 call option, I love that idea. But anyway, on the flip side, if you are a coffee bull and you think coffee prices are going to bottom, is there maybe a potential trade here with Starbucks? Because if prices, of course, bottom, then that means the cost of production and their profit margin for a company like Starbucks could be in trouble. And it's interesting, if we look at these sort of 10-year cycles, you can see, top of the range, bottom of the range, basically the past 10 years, 50% level. And that's like $32 lower than where we are now. That's a lot of money. If we look at the past cycle, right, bottom of the range, 1998, 1999, top of the range, 20, what is that? Yeah, $20, 50% level, doink, right? And of course, this was through that recession, and this is why we say stocks usually lose 50% of their value through recessions. And I thought it was kind of funny. We go through the previous cycle, right when this thing first IPO'd. Bottom of the range, 30 some odd cents. Top of the range, $6, $7, 50% level, doink. So I don't know. I'm warming to the idea of maybe picking up a Starbucks put option here. But I see a lot of stocks. Like we said, the Google. Ironically enough, and I don't know whether the public is prepared for this, but I would not be surprised whatsoever to see a stock like Google come off here a good $300-400 easily. And you can see where the original, where the reload zone is. That's like, like $500-600 lower than where we are right now. And then, like I talked about that interactive company. How do I do that? Here. And its 50% level is sitting at $90. That's almost half. Not quite half, but $80, I suppose, would be half. So Mountain Man Tag is more than 50% haircut on this thing. You can see the short trades are starting to set themselves up here in the stock market. So I'm definitely I'm paying close attention, and this is pretty much what I've been sort of talking about for the past I don't know, maybe year or two. Yield curve will invert. Trade wars never end well. We've had that Dow super cycle. I don't know whether you guys have seen the guys from the Foundation for the Study of Cycles talk. We should get ready for the recession, guys. It's coming. Exactly how it comes in here, one never really knows, but this is why I like buying the long-term options. You know, you could just go buy like, and actually be just a curious little exercise here. What would okay, so it's 160 bucks now on this IAC. I can buy January 2020, so I can buy lots and lots of time. Our target is $90.24, so maybe like $100 put. Can I buy that for $5 or less? If I could, I'm definitely interested. All? Is that all they're going to give me? Oh, there we go. $90 put. Ooh, look at that. $3 bid, $4.70 offered. That option at our 50% target should be worth $10. You know, I mean, there's a, and you can actually see somebody's taking a position here at the 95s. So I do. Oh, look at that. Look at the huge open interest there sitting at $60. So that's clearly where the institutions think a long-term floor on this thing is. So 1 year at, what is that, 155. If we lose those levels, you can see probably going to be some support at 125. My hunch is if the market does dump into that, you'll probably see these options get bid up a bit. Do they double? That's a tough one. But if you could sneak in there at like 3.25, 3.5 or something, if you're lucky, then that would mean $7. And like we said, the target is 10. So I think you can make some half decent money. I think I might even, for my personal account, go take a good look at that option. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm looking at in the stock market. All right, so let's go hit your list. Let's see what we got there. Hey, Brian, I have one more, please. Oh, I don't think we looked at the euro in particular. Oh, boy, this EOS is coming off hard here. Where should we do this? Load up a new page. No, not there. I don't really want to lose those. I guess we'll do a new one. New chart. All right. FXE. So we'll just keep this as simple as possible. It should be the Euro Trust. There it is. All right, pretty choppy. I don't know whether I'd be really recommending trading off of these currency ETFs. You can see they're just, you know, riddled with holes. Position trading, though, I think it's okay. You know, if you want to play like leaps and stuff on these things, it's not a bad idea. What can we sort of discern out of this just very quickly? Let's throw on our good old template. All right. Ranges. Bottom of the range. Top of the range. 50% level happens to be the POC. I think we had Thomas's friend was all jazzed about the market working its way up to this 130 level. And, you know, I mean, it's definitely not doable. Horizontal support and resistance, I think it makes perfect sense that that's going to be a huge level. And, you know, as our buddy Julian just said, you know, if you're actually going to be hunting shorts, well, you know, that's probably an area you want to be focused in on way up there. I remember that this gap was super powerful. And we were asking, you know, could the market work its way back up? There. And you notice that off of just this range alone, that's that 50% level. And it also happened to be right into a MUOC. So the interesting thing is, like, MUOC wise, really we should spend a lot of time in here filling this in. There's a lot of sort of unfinished business in here. Trade location wise, though, is this really the best place to be hunting a trade? That's a tough one. I suppose off of the lower time frames, if we start looking at things like the Euro futures, we could make the argument that there was probably short setups and maybe even like an El Tangonator coming down to the bottom. And actually interesting, look how the 50% level was just hit right there. So was that a 2-to-1? Yeah, it might have been. I don't know whether I would really, and like some of our community love to take the trade off of the clotheslines, which would be sort of in there. Your risk to new highs and then a move to 50% level. Well, that's going to generate better than 2-to-1. So not a big surprise there. Off of the intradays, and actually this is a weekly chart, right? So what that really means is really wild price action in here. Whoops, did I just blow the computer up? Computer after a while goes, I think I've had enough, Brian. Loading. Well, let's try and reload it. See what happens. All right, let's head back down to that daily. Let's see what it gives us. There we go. See, and this is why I don't really like to trade the this FXE, because it's just Swiss cheese. But if you were looking at this top and we're looking at these lows and said, what's a 50% rule? Is there money to be made on a move back down? Which one was that? Was that one? No, oh, actually, it's different. I guess we lost that one. And I seem to remember this was sort of our idea from last summer. I remember we were watching this thing like a hawk through last summer. So looks like something along those lines. I don't know whether I have that exactly right or not. Yeah, looks pretty good. I mean, hell, there's an M right there if you had the balls to get short off of that. Wow, what a trade. There's 50% level. You can see how we just about tagged that. Was there, what I actually really like about this one was it's pretty good looking, a wedge breakdown here. All right. Beautiful M there. So, you could have very easily just said, look at Brian, M's kind of like our bot set up on MEX and all that I missed. You say, well, Brian, I'm going to risk that down to our 50% target. Do I get a 2-to-1 out of that? Well, it's 2.66 just to there. So I think that's sort of the trade that happened, and you probably need to be watching things like the Euro futures. I suppose you could have traded this through the FXE, but hunting setups off the daily charts and stuff like this on these ETFs, you can see it's absolute Swiss cheese. Give you heartburn. Probably the best way to hunt this, if you wanted to play it through the ETF, is to hunt the setup on the futures, right? So you can see nice clean setup there on the futures, and then go to the Euro Trust and hunt options off of it, with the ultimate objective of taking profits on the 50% tag, or when your options double in price. I suppose one could argue this is very similar to sort of what we saw out of Bitcoin recently. And it wouldn't surprise me, honestly. It really wouldn't surprise me if Bitcoin's a leading indicator here. So, we may see kind of like what we saw out of Bitcoin. The market rallies back into resistance. It's going to consolidate, and then if it follows Bitcoin, then it's going to crap out and make another leg lower. But you can see, Ray Barbecue, he would say, well, you know what, we should probably wait for this 38.2 to resolve. You can see how this is like a V bottom. And kind of just like what we saw in all of these cryptocurrencies, V bottoms usually need to be tested. So, wait for some sort of dump against lows. And if the lows hold and we can turn back up, then rock and roll. If, however, we make new lows, well, then we have to start the whole process from scratch all over again. Yeah, that's good to see. I see Philip is banging out doubles even amidst the carnage. Way to go, Philip. Excellent job. So just to go and show that there are bull markets out there, right? There's you always hear Brian say there's always a bull somewhere. So this was Philip's trade here this morning. Nice volume too. Way to go, dude. Rock on. Excellent job. Formidable. Okay, so hopefully that helps you with the euro. Too early to call a bottom. You can clearly see where the top was. Remember, we talked about that gap, 50% of the bounce. 1, 2, 3, 4, like a quadruple top. So what a shock. Market dumped. You could go AB equals CDs. I wouldn't be surprised, just like Bitcoin, that these lows have to be tested. And I think, like what we said just off of that euro ETF, is we actually haven't hit the 50% level yet on this thing. So that tells me probably we got to do a little bit more work to the downside, eh? So there's the V bottom, and it doesn't look nearly as pretty as those futures contracts, eh? There's the 50% level, and we just missed hitting that on this exchange-traded fund. So does that mean once the sort of frivolity is over of the dead cat bounce, we're going to have to roll over and head back down to clean this up? And look at this big old hole in the charts here. You know, this is the problem with dealing with the ETF, is you're like, holy Jesus, look at this. This is Swiss cheese. So if you are interested in the ETF, just make darn certain to, if you are interested in levels, just to pop on over to the continuous futures contract and just confirm or refute whether there are gaps on this chart. And you'll notice there's the big gap, right there, doink. So ironically enough, if this thing really falls out of bed, I could actually see it come right back down and fill in that gap there. Ugh. So way too early to call a bottom. You can clearly see where the top is. 50% level is a little bit lower. In fact, Hogue, if we're just looking at this range here, maybe we'll go like that. Let's see what happens. Hogue would say we really should go down and test value low anyway. You can see there's some awful funny business around this level unto itself, and there's actually a point of control all the way down there. So I get the funny feeling we're going to be spending some time filling all of this in. If we can rally back up to the top end of the range, you can take your shots against those highs. But I'd like to see, like I had showed you earlier, I'd like to see a nice bullish resolution off of that 38.2 before I start getting like super duper bull. So there's 38.2, dead cat bounce right into there. Probably a bit of a consolidation. If it Bitcoins, then we're going to crap out and make new lows. And just like Bitcoin, we had to wait and see what happens. That could be a very similar situation there. Okay, SPWR. Let's see what the heck that is. Jesus, no love here, eh? Well, I'll keep that up just in case. Let's go like that. And we will go SPWR, Sun Power. You know, these guys, they really need energy prices to be trending higher for them to get any kind of bid. I actually saw a really interesting, hey, way to go, Kevin. Awesome. So multiple people are taking profits. Way to go, guys. That makes me very happy to see. Do I have any of that? I don't think I have any of it, do I? Nope, I ain't got none of it. Boo. It says boo. Way to go, guys. Anyway, you did awesome. So, you know, just looking at this chart, you know, it's not a bad idea to be thinking about long setups. But unfortunately, unlike commodities, we always have to be cognizant of the fact that stocks technically have absolutely no intrinsic value. Technically, stocks can be worthless very easily. You know, like if you have an operating blockchain and it's actually doing it's actually validating blocks and they're getting done, and you know, cryptocurrencies are moving around wallets, there is utility in that, and I believe people will pay money for that commodity. It is a commodity. I would argue these tokens, and of course it's predicated on whether it's an actual valid blockchain and it's working. But I would argue that they do have value. They do represent value. Stocks, we can't make that assumption. Technically, this stock could not only be worthless, but it could actually be worth less than the paper that it's printed on, right? If the company runs up a whole shitload of debt and they can't service the debt and they have to declare bankruptcy, well, shareholders get nothing. So we always have to be cognizant of that with stocks. Always, always, always. I'm not really the biggest fan of investing in stocks right now. They're very, very dangerous considering where we are in my sort of cycle thesis, and years that end in 8s, 9s, 0s, 1s, and 2s usually have recessions around them. Ironically enough, the stocks that I am interested in, I'm very interested in picking up some of this dog. As an anti-stock market proxy, right? This is basically a Dow short. We're not there yet. It's a very good question. Somebody asked, can we pull up the yield curve just to take a quick boo and just see whether we're actually hit recession yet? Actually, I don't know. Oh, yeah, here we go. Dynamic yield curve. So obviously it's a pretty popular tool. So you can see we're not there yet. Short rates need to come up probably another, say, 0.5%, which would be like 2 more rate hikes. The question really ultimately I have is, let's see if we can show you this. Where are we? Yield curve analysis. Can you do tutorials with Thomas on leverage trading to help figure out your demons? All right. My ultimate question is, and notice that the long bonds really perked up here. You could argue 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 30-year, 2-year, 5-year, 30-year, 10-year. Uh-oh. Do you see how yields are actually falling as we go out the curve? So this is getting, we're in the very last innings of this expansion here. And as we said, the Fed is, they just kept saying, hey, we're going to keep raising rates. And as we sort of talked about before, it's not really like the Fed has a lot of wiggle room. It's like the market itself is forcing their hand. Now, if the euro-dollar market, which is corporate interest rates, if it can bottom and start moving up, then the Fed can go, okay, phew, don't need to raise rates anymore, and maybe that buys us a bit more time. But the market-based proxies are starting to get inverted here, and that's getting very dangerous. I think we got to be a lot further along than that, but at the same time, too, we have a U.S. congressional election coming up. Actually, it was really interesting in that, what did I want to show you? I think it was way back in here somewhere, but it probably is much further along. But let's see if I can find it here. Let's go U.S. congressional election. Typical stock. There's a cool chart somebody put out. Maybe you guys can even find it while I'm talking here. But they it's a pretty popular chart that goes around, but it shows the U.S. Congressional election. What typically, here we go. What typically happens, that's not what I'm looking for. Fudge. And what a normal, non-election year cycle looks like. Thought I had it on here, but I guess not. So the point here is that congressional election years really, and I was a bit surprised by it, but they usually underperform. So don't be shocked if we see the stock market kind of just malaise here. Maybe if I do it the other way around, typical stock market performance through. Fudge. Anyway, somebody put out the tweet. I knew I was supposed to retweet that this morning. It drive me nuts. But anyway, I'll try and find it. Good question with regard to the yield curve. We're not there yet. Could we, and usually into the, end of the summer, we usually have a nice upping market. So maybe we perk up into that. But typical congressional election years, don't expect a lot out of the stock market. It sucks. Congressional election. Maybe we can get something like this. Let's see what happens. Yeah, I'll try and find it later on today. I don't see anything here. It's going to help. All right. There's all just going into politics. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Okay. Okay, well, let's keep moving this bus forward. So the question specifically here was about SPWR. Let's put you over here. SPWR. And as I sort of said before, you have to be careful. And I have a problem with these solar companies. If I'm not mistaken, I think this is a solar name. And that's sort of why I preface this with we have to be careful. I noticed, and I was quite shocked about this today, the Quebec government was forced because of political crap to buy solar power contracts that are absolutely losing money. I mean, it's staggering how much money that they're losing. And remember that the whole sort of solar idea was based on $100 a barrel oil. So if we don't have $100 a barrel oil, it makes very difficult. Oh boy. Alarm's going off. OMG. Yeah, I've got to bail on the OMG. That's the way it goes. Jesus, Bitcoin's just losing its lunch here, eh? 6,600 now. Jesus Christ. Well, you can see. So I'm just going to. Interesting. While we're doing this right in the middle of the daily brief, or actually, what are we calling this? We're calling this the Broiler Chicken Show. Yep, here we are. So we broke our lows, and I said that if we broke our lows, I was going to get out. So I'm going to blow this position out. That's the way it goes. Bear with me here a second. 91 units. That's interesting. I'm going to bail on this trade because I It broke the bottom here, right? So what's our low here? 950, so we'll go 949. Let's let that work. Looks like they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, right? Well, I'll put it up for sale. I did that again. All right, so that order is working. I'll let that do its thing. All right, back to our story. Yes, I know. Now every single one that I open up is going to give me a so don't be shocked if that goes off a few times. So, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, First Solar. So, the problem here is if energy rolls over, then it makes it very difficult to justify investing in these things. You can see right now they are just bleeding money, and they're not expected to earn money next quarter. And in fact, you can see their earnings are actually even lower. They are expected to earn a bunch of money next year, but that might just be them cleaning up the books here. So insiders don't own a hell of a lot of this. This is very bothersome from a stock ownership perspective. Shares out. We can't really say that that's light. That's sort of middle of the road. Price to book, trading at 2 times book, so we can't even say it's cheap. Price to sales is relatively cheap, but of course, if they're not earning any money, they might have to come back and borrow and refinance and float more stock to stay alive. So fundamentally, and if you're interested in stocks at all, you definitely have to start with your fundamentals, right? And just make sure you're not walking into a train wreck. So, in that perspective, awfully tough. I suppose as a contrarian, you could think about going in and nibbling against the bottom end of the range here. But if we lose these lows, you better get the hell out of there. And, this is one of these kind of things. I'm from Missouri. I mean, I'd really like to see these companies actually make some money. I suppose one could argue, Brian's always squawking to you guys, weekly W's, right? Try and find the weekly W's. You can see that it's sort of, trying to put one in here. You could take the chance on this, but, given the price of energy, the end of the commodity cycle, I don't have a problem if you wanted. Probably the best way to play this is to buy an option, right? You could do your 50% rules, kind of like what we just did on the was it the euro? No, it was one of the other stocks, right? What stock were we looking at? I remember we were looking at a stock earlier. Anyway, so I suppose maybe you could think about buying a call. I don't think you're going to see this thing trending, of course, until, good old Ray Barbecue's 38.2 is resolved. I think on the short term, you could maybe look for a value trade, hunting back up top here, maybe throw some money at a call option. But, going and investing a pile of money in the stock here right now, seems awfully risky. So, internals, and actually, in fact, you can see the divergence that fired here. It tried to put in a bullish breakout here, but then, big M fail. I don't know. Structurally, I can't get excited about this name, and, like a fundamental structure. Technically, we are down against the bottom end of the range, but we just went through that seasonal period where if this thing really was going to rally, it would have. Buy your unleaded the middle of February, sell it the middle of May, made money 9 out of the past 10 years, blah, blah, blah. Right now, we're actually in a very dangerous time of year, and my hunch is this thing's probably going to break to new lows. So I think I'm going to have to pass on that idea for the time being. Find me a stock with, 20 million, 30 million, somewhere in there. News that directors are loading up. News that, institutions don't own much of this. It'd be interesting to see how much institutions own. So we said that insiders don't own any of that, which is very disturbing. And institutional participation is, well, they own 30% of it. So that's a bit heavier than what we'd really like to see. Okay, so that's basically my 2 cents there. I'm not really the biggest fan of the whole solar story anymore. I think it's way too unprofitable of a business model for us to seriously consider. Now, if we get to the point where the market just completely washes out, collapses, there's blood in the streets, right? The feds come out and said, we're going to start lowering rates. We need to throw helicopter bags of money at the market again. Then I think that's the kind of environment that we can start thinking about hunting long stock ideas. But for the time being, just like crypto, which really sucks, it's just kind of a big hurry up and do nothing for me. All right, QASH on Phoenix. Oh boy, let's see what we got here. Where should we do this? You get stopped out. Oh boy, well, we lost those lows, so even hunting low ideas off of here. See ya. In the speed bump. Oh boy, what a mess. We've hit stop to trailing levels on MEX. So now you can see the guys who took this short setup, and it's a pretty clean short setup. They're laughing right now. Okay, let's get back to the topic at hand. So I'm going to put away the yield curve conversation for the time being. Let's maybe, I guess we'll go and do it off of this one. All right. Are you guys getting any value out of this? I haven't lost most of you. Are you guys enjoying this conversation, or is this just a big waste of everybody's time? Casey's feeling good. That's good. All right, Gerald's on board. All right, well, let's just keep moving forward. What time is it? It's 11:30. I have to be out of here at 1:30, so we can talk for 2 hours if you feel like it. It's fully SIC. Okay, well, I hope that's good. Okay, well, what was the symbol we wanted to go after? QASH. QASH. And hats off to you guys for booking doubles on a day like this. Way to fucking go. That's awesome. Actually, we're back into that type of environment with Bitcoin breaking to new lows. It might do yourself a favor, and keep in mind, most of them now do. Maybe analyze your idea off of US dollars until we actually see Bitcoin stabilize a little bit here. So your prices in Bitcoins might be kind of skewed if Bitcoin, goes into the shitter here. I think it's pretty straightforward. You can see this, what we call horizontal support and resistance. So you can see we're coming down into an area where the bear was stopped previously. The problem, of course, is you can only go to the well so many times. And, if these levels are taken out here in earnest, you might get one of those dead cat bounces on the other side of the level being taken out. That does happen. I think if anything, like you can see the trade really set up right there. We had the market come after this level, put in this fractal bottom, rally away from there, come back down, test the lows, candle body lows. You hear Brian talking about that all the time. That's at 44 cents. So boom, there's your double. Merry Christmas. Right into that area. So what I think happened here was there was basically your trade right there. And unfortunately, you can see momentum studies on that move up here. Started to go bear, right? You can see the divergence that came in here. And that was that for that rally. Oof, boom, gone. See you later. So, where do you sit right now? If anything, what I do like is with the move to new lows, but the move in MACD not to new lows, maybe we have a potential bullish divergence forming now. You can see that they even put in sort of a below midpoint bullish divergence through here. I really do like when they cross through the zero line. That's a pretty powerful signal. But nonetheless, muted rally. And again, this is sort of the same thing as this entire crypto market and what Bitcoin tried to go through. My hunch is that if that EOS story went well and Bitcoin held the lows, then this thing would have turned up through here and away we go. For those traders trades, kind of like that OMG that I just talked about there a moment ago, I don't have a problem you taking the trade off of here. If it's any kind of leverage, though, you better get the fuck out of there if we break these lows. And so that's the kind of situation that we're in right now. If anything, we're probably going to have to wait for a new W to form, and just be vigilant. I think like Julian earlier is like, I don't know whether the seasonality rally is going to come or not. I've seen this repeatedly in these kind of markets where they're going to probe for some sort of bottom in here. And I've seen time and time again, they'll probe against these lows, then they'll put in the bottom, and then the thing will take off. And then we have our seasonal summer rally, and people go, oh, okay, well, I guess that was business as usual. So don't be shocked if you actually see another bottom come in here. But the long and short of it here is it's not today. If you want to use moving average crosses to try and help you time trend a little bit better, you can see that the moving averages are still very negative and there's nothing really changing here. I suppose, you've heard me talk lots about this before. I like the idea because you never know how violent these spike backs are going to be. And in previous years, we've had some situations where it just goes down and then boom, just takes off. I don't have a problem whatsoever, Nanny Nibbles. You believe in this story. You like these people. You going and just accumulating down in this range. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I know Julian earlier told you, hey, I'm just going to wait until I start getting bullish signs in the market. Remember, there's a million different ways to skin the cat. I mean, I certainly would not recommend, loading up the boat, balls deep, margin, mortgage your house to buy this thing. That's just asking for trouble. But if you wanted to just go in and nanny nibble off of this level here because we're basically down at the bottom end of the range, I really don't have a problem with that at all. 1%, maybe even as high as 2% of your portfolio. I don't know whether I'd be ready to commit 5%. Remember, the 5% rule is all hell breaks loose. Absolute worst case scenario. You cannot ever break that rule. So, for instance, like this OMG, I'm going to take about a 10% haircut on the trade. Well, I only put in less than 1% of my stake into the trade. So, 10% haircut of a 1% hit, well, that's like 0.1% of my portfolio. It's a kind of risk that I can take every day of the week. That's sort of like, like the kind of trading and risk management I want you guys obeying in this kind of market. Just dial it back, dial it back. But if you wanted to nibble on this thing down in this area, I really wouldn't have a problem with that. Then, of course, I can't comment on the fundamental story. I don't know what's going on there. So I can't comment on it. Looks like Thomas is saying that he just closed out all his shorts. So way to go, Thomas. Congratulations. And it's nice to see, those that have trading plans, especially those that can build plans where they're not planning on sleeping. And I've seen lots of times, if you want to live Thomas's life, great. But I've seen lots of times 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, he's sitting at his computer. I personally can't live that kind of life. My brain starts to get fried, especially when I'm running the school and stuff. But, long and short of it here is you build the plan, you follow the plan, there's money to be made. So I'm going to leave the fundamental conversation about this to a later date. All I'm going to say is probing against the lows, nanny nibbles. Okay, you're not chasing an up market, which is good. If you're going to leverage trade against these lows, me personally, I don't think there's enough anecdotal evidence for me to support that idea just yet. It looks like the market tried to set up a cute little setup here, but it never materialized. It tried to, but and if you followed, said, oh, railroad tracks, kind of like what I did with that OMG, I'm going to take this trade. you had to get out of there, right? It's just simple as that. All right, what's next? SEK versus USD. I don't know whether this is a stock or a crypto or what, but we'll see what we got. Well, maybe we'll go. Well, yeah. Okay, I guess that's a stock. SEK. I guess it all depends on how strong USD is. I don't know whether Jonas, you're asking about that. I think that's a stock, but if there is SEK, I have no idea where it trades. Maybe it might. He said versus US dollar. I'm not quite sure. When I type in SEK cryptocurrency, nothing comes up. When I type in SEK, I don't even see a US listing here. So I'm not quite sure what you're looking at there, Chief. We could probably try and pop on it here. See if it comes over here. SEK. Nope, nothing's coming up there. So I'm not quite sure what it is you're looking at there. If you could maybe clarify, we'll take a look at that in a coming session. GameStop, GME on NYSE, 10.5% dividend. Oh boy, that sounds like trouble. So what are we doing? I guess we're doing here, right? GameStop. Boom. Oh, well, it's got a little bit of a bottom working. Nice volume. That's encouraging. Did they come out with some sort of big driver? Yeah, interesting. That gap lower was on a divergence, and it actually confirmed right there. Cute little oversold reading on Willie. Big capitulation volume there. Again, like I said earlier, I always like to look at these stocks from a weekly basis and just say, okay, well, are we in an acceptable buying zone? It's not a terrible place to be thinking. I suppose one could argue you could do a 50% retracement. I usually like to do 50% retracements just off a single calendar year, though. So this is going back, oh boy, about 5 years. If we do just this past year, where's this thing been? I think that's the ultimate low. So the past year, July, oh, that's right in here. So yeah, actually this would make sense in that probably, and it's probably more off of this range. Whoops, that's not what I wanted. There, and then we'll go 38.2. Yeah. So my hunch is top of value. You can see 200 period moving average. That's probably significant resistance here in the short term. And then if we do a 50% level off of the past year, yeah, I guess that's there, right? So I wouldn't be looking for a huge upside here just over the short term. I think probably $18, and you said the stock's yielding 10.5% at 14. So figure out what $4 coming into that would be. Is that dividend really safe? That's a whole other conversation altogether. Usually you like to see the dividend covered 3 times by earnings. So let's see. Their dividends $1.52, and their earnings are yes. Oh boy. Oh Jesus. So you can see that they're paying a dividend of $1.54. They only earn 45 cents over the short term. It looks like they're expected to earn quite a bit more money next year, but that's not even covering the dividend twice. So I would be very leery about whether that dividend's going to hold. Now, the interesting thing is you might, one of the reasons why the stock might be jumping up here is because maybe there's talk that they're going to cut the dividend, which of course would relieve the company of a massive financial burden going forward. Also, too, maybe they even say, okay, so they go XD on June 11th. So there's probably a bunch of people buying that stock just to try and grab that dividend. On the other side of that, look out. And then, of course, we have to ask ourselves, GameStop turns to comic books as it looks for new revenue growth. So that means whatever they were doing is obviously not working. GameStop, why the low-hanging fruit of store closure is gone. So they must have maybe cleaned up the company's balance sheet a bit with closing a whole bunch of stores that were not making any money. GameStop talks leadership transition. Oh boy, don't like the sound of that. So you might find that the new leaders say, okay, well, the very first thing we have to do is cut the dividend to clean up the company. So be careful there, guys. Again, this is another one, though. Well, Andrew says GameStop is walking dead. Oh, that's not good. 100 million shares out. Insiders. Oh, this is very dangerous. I hate when I see this. Insiders own very little of this company, and the street owns almost all of it. So that means the street is heavy stock. It's not like they can come in and bid the stock up, trying to, on anticipation of all the mutual funds and stuff coming in and buying it. They've already bought. So if anything, that's a little bit concerning. So stock's pretty heavy. They are earning some money, but I think that this dividend here is very susceptible. It's very dangerous. So there's my 2 cents there. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. And again, I understand now that somebody's going to try and come in and grab that dividend, which is pretty attractive. I mean, if you can get paid it, awesome. You can see technically, I think the 50% level here, $18 is probably going to be a brick wall. And if anything, this bottom that's being put in here now, I think if anything, it's probably like, okay, so the company has said in earnest they're going to try and clean their story up. And so they're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. If anything, I love this little entry right down here. This is one of these situations like Julian was telling you earlier, where you can actually try and sneak in and basically risk against the lows. This nice inside bar. You're going to risk to a break of new lows there. And, if these guys do any kind of performance, then you're rocking and rolling. And that's probably what these people here are enjoying right now is that rally, that trade there. And notice also, too, 2.28. Coming into the dividend date, that's 2-to-1 risk reward, of course. Anybody who bought here, they're also going to collect the dividend. Is there incentive for them to maybe hop off? I think so. So I certainly can't justify being a buyer here. If you were really interested in this name, let whatever blow off top happens. You can see the hole in the profile. Maybe the blow off top comes in up there. Then draw your fibs. And reload zones, and what a coincidence, 78.6 is off the original breakout. So, maybe after the event, the dividends, let's see if the stock comes down in here, puts in a nice bottom, and then you can rock and roll. But here, a little bit tough. And then, fundamentally, do we really want to be chasing yesterday's stories? This is why we build the CanSlim model. The VCIM model, we really want to try and get into stocks that are sort of new ideas, that, brand new people, issues. Directors are loading up, signs for shares for debt, right? There's actual value there. Low institutional participation, like in CanSlim, so that the institutions can come in and bid your stock up. So not fundamentally a name I'd be interested in. Okay, AIRI is the ticker. Weekly W and weekly Davo. Not all the FA looks great, however. Is this nibble worthy? All right, AIRI. AIRI. Well, definitely at the bottom end of his range. Wow. Ah, interesting. So that it looks to me like they probably restructured the company here. You can see how choppy it is. Brought it back. That's probably into like technical levels. Holy Jesus, this thing is a train wreck. This is looking like like typical bulletin board kind of stuff. I mean, it's not a bad location. You're definitely thinking in the right way. Especially when we used to look at like the OBV on altcoins. We would say, oh man, this looks perfect. I don't know whether I really want to go and chase and pay this price up here. If anything, probably if you were super jazzed on this thing, reload zones. And actually I do. Actually, this is exactly what we just talked about a moment ago. So can you see how on this particular one, we can even draw it off of this original low there. You get the big burst, confirms the W, then it comes back down and puts in this W, right? So I like this, and also we have a Wyckoff check. You can see they repeatedly checked this level, and they just rejected it. Get your butt out of there, get your butt out of there. So you want to work your bid, right? This is a 200 period moving average. It's a nice, simple sort of keep you honest indicator. Maybe you get filled through the summer, late summer. See these gaps right here. Maybe it even happens to happen in the fall. Oh, look at this big gap right here. If you are interested in this name, I think that the market's telling you there is trade location right in there. And it'd be interesting too. Oh yeah, so that sort of basically is right in the middle of that reload zone there, right? So if you want to be a buyer, I like the what is that, $1.36, $1.37, $1.38, all in that area. So sitting here at $1.73, work your bid, be patient. Nothing really too exciting to get too wrapped up about there. Now, am I going to puke if I see the fundamentals here? AIRI. All right, at least it's on FinViz. That's a good sign. Insiders own 20%. That's better. Institutions own only 5%. I like that. 25 million shares out. I love that. Mwah, kisses. Mwah, 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 mwah. So they're losing money right now, but it looks like they're anticipated to make money next year. Look at this, EPS. This might even be a CanSlim stock. So 30%, 38% earnings growth this year. We'd like to see quarter-over-quarter growth, and you can see last quarter didn't come in so hot. So if you can get quarter-over-quarter 25% earnings growth, and then year-over-year 25% earnings growth, then you got yourself a half-decent idea. And it looks like they're anticipated that they're going to earn a bunch of money next year. So the question would be, what business are they in? What are they doing that's making so much money? Wired News, BWX Technologies joint venture with Battle secures 5-year contract extension for Idaho National Laboratory Management. Wow, there's a mouthful. All right, I mean, it's not bad. They are in cahoots with Raytheon. So he's a big U.S. defense contractor. So definitely you're in good company. Defense contractors are doing really well these days. I'd be curious at why you think the fundamentals are so bad here. I actually think the fundamentals of this company aren't bad. Yeah, they are losing money. Well, yeah, they are losing money now. So let's see whether they can actually report a breakout. And actually, this is kind of cool too, because a lot of CanSlim ideas form cup and handles. That's actually the technical way to get into a lot of CanSlim stocks. So I can see the very cup and handily type pattern here. I like the idea of working those bids down at that gap. I think that gap is right in there. And you can see the W down in there, right? That's sort of our cheeky ass stink bids, crypto gaps, right? Where's Joshua? He loves to trade like that. But I don't think the fundamental story here is that bad. And I really do like the fact that, a big chunk of the stock is owned by insiders. A big chunk of it seems to be locked away. There's only half of the total shares outstanding in the float, which means that, if this thing gets going, because not that many institutions own it, if this thing gets going, man, it could take off like a rocket. So actually, I don't mind that chart at all. That's not a bad idea. You're definitely thinking in the right direction. So I'm going to give this idea a B, right? Maybe even a B plus. I think it's a pretty good idea. And if you want to try and go and pick up some cheap stock, work your bids down below. I don't know whether it's a good idea to chase. If you're like totally enamored with this company, you could always just go buy a little bit here and then another bid at that gap and get yourself an average position on that. That's not a terrible idea. I think whoever asked about that, I think you're actually not giving yourself as much credit. Oh, William. Yeah, I know him. Yeah. I think you're doing good work there, William. That's not bad. All right. Just a few more, and then we'll call it a day. Nano. Oh, didn't we look at Nano? I seem to remember we looked at this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to keep that chart. That's not a bad-looking chart. Nano. Oh, interesting how they don't have a US dollar, but they have this BNB cross. Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. I remember we talked about this on Friday. We said, watch these lows. So they lost the lows. And just like the OMG, if you were going to take a trade off of this railroad tracks, which I don't think this railroad tracks ever did confirm. Nope, never did. So I don't think there really was a double bottom or even a fractal here to work with. Never did fire. So unfortunately, just a big hurry up and do nothing here. If you like this story, don't have a problem nibbling, but this might be like a library credits. And I made the same mistake on library credits when it first came out. Thinking that this was a half decent place to nibble against these lows in here, and the market lost the lows, and it had to spend like the next 6 months working its way lower. So be cognizant, right? And the point here, kind of like that ARI industry kind of stock that we just looked at, we really need to see some sort of base here to tell us that, yep, the lows are in, especially if we lose these initial trading lows. That's a bad sign. Could take some time to have to clean it up. So that Nano, I'm kind of feeling the same sort of thing there. I mean, I'd love to wake up in the morning, guys, and say, yep, everything's bottom. We're going straight up, but we're just not in that type of market right now. And, nanny nibbles, you want to take a nibble off of that? Great. Maybe 1, 2, 3% of your portfolio. Don't raise more than 5% of your portfolio ever. And if anything with the nanny nibbles, we don't want to just go and nibble 5%, because then that way that handcuffs you, right? Well, okay, well, geez, just, threw in all my money in one shot. You want to go 1%, then maybe in a month or two, another 1%, then maybe a month or two, another 1%. Great. I don't have a problem with that. But as it stands right now, it's nibble worthy at most. And I think, probably if I was going to buy, and I don't know whether I bought any of this on Binance or not, but if I was going to take an initial nibble, it was probably through here. And now I'd just be sitting on my hands. I don't think you ever did get your double. 75, 100, we got up to 10,000. So nope, no double. So I'd just be sitting here twiddling my thumbs. And keep in mind, guys, I mean, yeah, we took 500, turned it into whatever. I think we're sitting at about 300,000 or 400,000 right now. But keep in mind, I was buyer of crypto and altcoins the fall of 2014, and some of those names I had to sit on, for a year. Oh, gee whiz! I had to sit on a name for a year to get my double. And that's, the irony of it all is anybody you give 100% return on your money for investing in the stock market for 1 year, and they love you. In crypto, they hate you. Try and figure that out. So I'm just going to keep running my business model exactly the same way I've run it since day one, especially off this little old lady nanny nibble strategy. But on a name like this, if I did take a nibble here, I wouldn't be doing anything. I'd just be sitting here twiddling my thumbs. Doing the old bag holding, as they say. Just make sure your bag ain't too big. NXS. Yeah, I know this is one that I think I did a little nibbling on earlier or recently, but kind of in the shitter. And we're going to see a lot of these names, guys. Get used to this. Okay, this guy's up and down and up and down. Actually, considering the way that the broader crypto market looks, this doesn't actually look too bad. But could we see a pressing of all of these lows? Absolutely, especially if Bitcoin decides to fall out of bed here. But interestingly enough, this guy actually does have a W working. Little suspicious about this low in here, and it looks like, yep, there's a gap right there. So, if this market has to go in the shitter for a while and everything just, basically stops, where's the likely pullback level? That gap is basically asking to be filled in. And if anything, the irony of it all is that this thing taking off probably will gap higher. And it's almost like that's what they kind of wanted to do here, right? I guess they didn't gap higher until here. That's almost a Joby gap, but not quite. The cool part about it, if you don't own any of this, is, you probably saw this big run up and you're like, oh my God, I'm missing the boat. Well, actually, all we're doing is coming back down into levels. It looks like there's a gap right here, so that's actually been filled in today. There's 78.6. You know how Brian loves his 78.6. And I suppose we could argue, I don't know whether, oh yeah, that gap might have been filled in on that day there. But, if anything, and I saw people in the lounge talking about this earlier today. Remember, venture capital is extremely volatile. So quite often, in broader markets, we'll see the market like pivot off of, yeah, Bob making a funny joke over there. In the broader market, we often see, especially like if you're trading commodities and stuff, and I think Ian did a study and he's really enamored with 70.7 fib, I think it is. He also did a study off of alts, and he found that markets actually love to come down to 88.6 a lot. Maybe what we should do is we should create like an alt RLZ. So we're going to say the alt RLZ is from 78.6 to 88.6. Man, it's not a bad idea going forward. I will say, classic commodities trading, I would use Mountain Man a lot. In altcoins, it's not a terrible idea if we wanted to bring this down to 78.6 to 88.6. And I think I actually noticed in the lounge yesterday, a few people were like, well, I've taken 61.8 bids out of my trading plan, and now I'm just starting to bid at 78.6. I don't have a problem with that strategy at all. I think that's perfectly fine. Really, the most important thing here is what works for you. What's going to keep the hair on the top of your head? What's going to keep you from going gray? What's going to keep you interested and active and sustainable over the long term? Because that's what this is all about. Is we got to build a plan that you can use for the rest of your life. This isn't just a one shot, 1 week. Julie and I have been doing this for 4 years. I've been at this silly game for 30 years. I can absolutely guarantee you, if the good Lord is going to keep me on this planet, I'm going to be doing this for another 30 years. It's in my blood. It's who I am. So and I may evolve myself over time, and my trading plan will change with my life. But if you have found that you have less anxiety and the trade ideas work a little better for you, if you want to adjust your reload zone down to these levels, I can live with that. It's whatever works for you. So interesting here, line in the sand, got tagged here this morning. And ironically enough, like I've got on my sheet here all the pot coins. I mean, the interesting thing is Dennis Rodman's heading to North Korea. Okay, Andrew, thank you. Pot actually got bid up, so it could get whacked here today and not break the bottom that it put in. Go figure. This dope coin actually has a bottom. So there are bottoms out there, guys. Don't think that just because Bitcoin rolls over that the whole damn space is toast. I mean, I would argue this thing actually looks like it's coming into it. It already has structure working, and it's coming into an area that we want to start hunting signals off of. What I usually teach in the course, especially for the level oneers, is let's try and slow this thing down for you, so you have a little less anxiety when you're making your trade decisions. So that's why we like to say, okay, well, location is one thing, but let's go now look at the indicators. And are the indicators suggesting that this market is stronger than what price would lead you to believe? I got a big fat M, and on heavy selling volume, broke the OBV. I've actually got a bearish divergence on MACD. It's a small one, but nonetheless, it is there. And of course, you can see I got this nasty like M within an M within a bigger M on Willie, and he's heading down. Do you want to, at this point, say, all right, well, we're in location, but I'm just going to cool my jets and wait for some sort of sign from my internal indicators of W's? That's always a good idea. And of course, you never know how this is going to play out. Maybe what we do is we actually put in all right, and we're back. Interesting how Google's playing with me here today. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Am I here? Hello? Anybody? Hey, there we go. All right. How about screen? Can you see my screen? Yeah. All right. So what I just wanted to simply say was to finish off this idea. If you want to try and reduce the anxiety of the trade process, let's wait. Now that we have location, let's wait for signs of divergence or, Davos, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a divergence. Maybe it comes in on the W in price. All these W's all fire at the same time. But ideally, to make this as least anxiety filled as possible, let's wait for that divergence. And then finally, do we have any structure to work with? Hopefully everybody can see how beautiful this W was here. This is ideally what we want to see, right? So if you want to just say, look at Brian, I appreciate that it's come down here, but this isn't the kind of structure that I like to work with. I want to see a W. Well, then that's just a function of you just being patient and disciplined and waiting for your W's. And the point that I'm trying to make here is we want to try and make this as least anxiety filled as possible. You want to do nibbles? Okay, fine. But you got to understand, of course, that the nibble strategy implies that we're willing to risk to zero. So if you're not willing to risk to zero and you're taking a bigger bite than those very small percentages, then my advice is wait for a bit more anecdotal evidence to actually show you that this thing has actually bottomed. Okay, do a Gap Hunter episode with our Gap Hunter. Yeah, actually, we haven't had Joshua on in a bit. I don't know whether he's actually done a piece for the daily brief for broiler chickens. I can always ask him. Joseph, I will ask him the next time I see him if he'll do just a little piece for you. And keep in mind, Joseph, that he was probably exactly where you were, 6-8 months ago. He's gone through the education program, and I think he's gotten a pretty good basis. He's hung around the site for a while. He's learned what works for him, and he's just in there trading like a gap hunter. Okay, one more to go, and then we'll call it a day. XEM. Oops. Boom. All right. Well, again, broken record. There are some that are just like, this market will never bottom, and I'm not going to buy anything. I'm the type that I love the idea of just coming in and nibbling against bottom ends of ranges. And I suppose through this, it was like, the sky's falling. And that produced this. Here we are back down in that range again. Almost every single coin that we see looks like this. Willie is stupid. I see that we actually have a bullish momentum divergence on MACD. So I could actually make the argument that, give me a nice, I'd like to see a clothesline close up here. But give me any kind of bullish resolution of this range. I think this thing's a buy. And of course, is there any money to be made on seasonal rallies? Oh, I think there's lots and lots of money. And if anything, blood in the streets, throw the baby out with the bathwater. I like that kind of talk and the chart looking like this. Could we dip down here? Nice little fuck you against these lows. Sure, this is crypto. No problem whatsoever. If these lows do hold though, and we turn back up here, oh boy, that was super have my attention. So, it's the same sort of message that you've heard repeatedly over the past probably hour or so. If you're going to take your shot, okay. I don't know whether I would be too comfortable considering how far this thing has come. Keep in mind the floor is down here, and if we have Joshua come on, I'm sure he'd be more than happy to tell us about some gaps that he has bids working in down here. I can see a gap right there. Oh boy, there's a big one. Doink. Looks like there might be another gap right here. Oh, look at the size of that one. Doink. So just even these two, we'll just assume those are the only ones. What does that do? Oh boy. So you can see if this thing really falls out of bed, oh boy, he's got a long way to go. So I don't know whether nanny nibbles would be appropriate on this. And this is kind of like Dash. People were wondering why Dash did this on Polo the other day. Well, yeah, we were playing against these lows, but you can see the original bottom is actually down here. And so somebody, yesterday was like, holy shit, did you see what Dash did? Well, that's the problem, is that this isn't really cheap. You could argue there's the point of control way down there. So, this market's pretty risky still. And these kind of names here, I don't think we can make the argument of the sort of nanny nibbles, no-brainer buys against low ends of ranges, because technically we're not at the bottom end of the range. This thing still has quite a bit of open air here, right? And even just look at this big candle alone, right? Horizontal support and resistance, somebody stepped in and was a buyer there. So you can see, oh boy, that's a lot of risk. And, good old Hogue, Hogue would just simply say, you know what? That's where I'm going to be interested in buying. So if this thing can hold these lows and turn back up, then maybe we got something to work with. But just like the OMG, if we lose these lows, you just got to walk away. Sucks. Welcome to a trader's life. And I don't know whether, because I didn't even really get any sort of railroad track reversal here or anything. I don't know whether I actually get a buy other than maybe, taking stabs off of reload zone ranges. That's about it. Like if you were trading this through here, you had a nice little counter trend rally, but it didn't translate into a double. So, I can understand, some people were like, Brian, we've rallied into resistance against these highs. I'm just going to hop off. That's fine. But as I said, off that higher time frame analysis, like if we zoom out, right, we do have to understand if we lose these levels here, we could very easily have to come all the way back down here. So, not really a name I would be totally jazzed about just yet. I do like the idea, though. We could go boom, maybe even boom like so, or probably even boom, boom. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. Let the market come up. Give us a nice move on the other side of this trend line. Give us some market structure. Give us some volume. And, moving averages bullish, all that kind of stuff. And then we can start really seriously thinking about setups. Right now, she's just in drift mode. Okay, I have no idea how long I talked, but I have a funny feeling that was about a 2 or 3 hour video. Did anybody enjoy that? I don't know. Did I put everybody to sleep? Okay, I think we'll leave it at that for today. Hope you guys got some value out of that. I fully appreciate this is an extremely difficult market. Ironically enough, we'll actually know who are the real traders here and who's actually in this for to make money by those people that can stick it out through this period. Remember I said we'll know that the bottom of the market is when this number sort of washes out. I don't know whether we're there yet. I'm starting to smell blood. I'm starting to smell panic. So I think we're getting there, but I'll definitely know who's actually in this for the long haul based on who actually survives through this cycle. If we've hit your uncle point and you're just like, I've had enough, I can't take this anymore, it's completely understandable. Nobody's holding a gun to your head. You got to love this stuff to be able to do what I've done for 30 years, day in, day out, right? It's got to be in your blood. So we're going to find out whether, let's see who can, survive the bear, keep their head together, keep their trading plan solid. You even notice there's a couple guys that were banging out doubles even in the midst of this mess. So there's always a bull somewhere. The question is, can you keep your head, keep your cool, keep your risk management in order through this? And then once the bottom comes in, then we'll know that we're ready to start going crazy again in the market. But unfortunately, it's just not right now. Okay, guys, I think I'll leave it at that for today. Hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. We've given you some food for thought. All the best, and bye for now.